Welcome to Workday Payroll Off-Cycle Payment Processing On-Demand Payments. In this session, we'll review off-cycle payments and explore how to process an on-demand payment. Let's start with an overview of off-cycle transactions or off-cycle payment processing. Off-cycle transactions occur outside of a regularly scheduled on-cycle pay run. There are three different types of off-cycle payments: manual payments, reversals, and on-demand payments. You can process off-cycle payments separately, for example, to pay terminated workers right away. You can also attach your off-cycle payments to an on-cycle run by syncing the off-cycle payment with the pay period start and end dates and the payment date. If you process off-cycle payroll results with an on-cycle run for the same worker, Workday enforces the following processing sequence: manual payments, reversals, on-demand payments, and finally the on-cycle result. Basically, you need to complete the off-cycle payroll results before you can complete the on-cycle result for the worker. Keep in mind that Workday helps you follow the sequence with a processing grid showing workers' calculation statuses. Additionally, because off-cycle results can affect on-cycle results, you may need to recalculate your on-cycle results after completing the off-cycle results. Now that you have a basic understanding of off-cycle transactions, let's explore on-demand payments. On-demand payments are the only type of off-cycle payment that actually generates a payment for a worker, either in the form of a check or direct deposit. There are two types of on-demand payments: replacement payments and additional payments. A replacement payment replaces a worker's on-cycle payment for a period or subperiod. This is necessary, for example, when it's the middle of the period, but you need to pay a terminated worker right away. Because you're replacing the on-cycle entry, you can only process an on-demand replacement payment once per pay period. You can't replace a payment twice. When you create an on-demand replacement payment, Workday automatically processes all the pay components you configured for that on-cycle entry. Workday also cancels the on-cycle payment that you're replacing, so you don't run the risk of overpaying. An additional payment generates a payment in addition to a worker's on-cycle pay for a period. You may need to do this, for example, if a worker's missing pay for hours worked or a raise wasn't reflected in a previous pay period. You can adjust their pay and issue a payment right away. You can also use on-demand additional payments to pay bonuses. You can make as many on-demand additional payments as you need. In addition to statutory taxes, which Workday automatically processes for on-demand additional payments, your run category may be configured to automatically calculate additional pay components. So be sure to check the run category to determine which pay components to include when processing an on-demand payment. Let's review how a payroll partner can process an on-demand payment for a worker. Meet Beth Liu, a payroll partner. As part of her role, Beth needs to pay a grossed-up spot bonus for Enrique Vasquez. Additionally, payroll has been notified that another worker, Angela Snodgrass, is owed severance. Beth will do this by processing an on-demand replacement payment. Signed in as Beth, Kai will demonstrate how to complete these tasks.
We'll start from Enrique's worker profile. From his Actions button, navigate to the Payroll menu and select Run On-Demand Payment. This takes us to the Run On-Demand Payment for Worker task, which we could also access from the search box. The period defaults to the current pay period. To attach this payment to the on-cycle run, we'll leave the defaults as is. Next, select Create Additional Payment. This prompts an alert which says that additional payments add to any regular results for the worker. Select OK to move to the second page of the task. When issuing on-demand payments in bulk, we highly recommend entering a batch ID. Because this is just one payment, we'll leave this blank. For the reason, select Additional Pay. The sub-period target date defaults to the last day of the pay period. let's change the payment date to match the payment date of the current period. Because we're only issuing one additional payment for this worker, enter a priority of 1. This organization's payment election rules allow Beth to override the payment type for on-demand payments. For Enrique, let's choose direct deposit and his personal checking account. In the input grid, enter the spot bonus. For the pay component, search for and select Spot Bonus Gross Up USA. This pay component enables us to enter a net amount. From this, Workday calculates the gross amount and relevant taxes such that the worker receives that net amount in their pay. Next, add a row to the input details section and select net amount for gross up. Then, we can enter the net amount, which for this worker is $10,000. Workday will gross this amount up so that he receives a spot bonus of $10,000 in net pay. Select OK to process the payment. Then, select Refresh until the process completes. Now there's an additional row in the pay groups being calculated grid for the spot bonus we just entered. And Enrique's on-cycle result is pending the completion of this additional pay. We have to complete his off-cycle before we can complete the on-cycle result. Next, Beth needs to process an on-demand replacement payment for Angela Snodgrass. Let's access the Run on-Demand Payment for Worker task from Angela's Actions button. Again, we want to attach this off-cycle to the on-cycle run, so we'll leave the default as is. Next, select Create Replacement Payment. The alert says that this replacement payment will overwrite pay results that exist for the worker. Select OK to move on to the second page of the task. For the reason, choose Severance. Then, update the payment date to the payment date for the current on-cycle period. In Angela's case too, there's only one payment, so enter 1 for the priority. Let's scroll down to the input grid. Beth needs to enter a value for the pay component severance lump sum, which isn't configured for payroll input, so we need to select the special entry checkbox first. Then, this pay component becomes available. We're entering input for a pay component that Angela doesn't already have, so we'll leave the default of override. You can use the adjustment option if, for example, you needed to add or subtract from a pay component that is already calculated for the worker. Next, add a row to the input details section and add an amount of $5,000. Select OK and then refresh until the process completes. Now, there's an additional row in the pay groups being calculated grid for the severance pay. This on-demand replacement payment is in a pending completion status because we need to complete this worker's other off-cycle payment, a reversal, before we can complete the on-demand payment. Recall the processing sequence for off-cycle payments. You need to process manual payments first, then reversals, and finally on-demand payments before you can process on-cycle payments.
In this session, we reviewed off-cycle transactions and explored how to process both an on-demand additional and on-demand replacement payment. Thank you for taking the time to learn with Workday.